Hi everybody, Professor Snart checking in. As we continue in our English 1130 Intro to Lit course, in fact I'm going to take sort of a broad view here and give us a bit of an outline of our activities moving forward. We are both just past midterm, but also it feels like we're getting close to the end of our course. Part of it, just that 8-week kind of accelerated format. But you start folding in, the Thanksgiving and the holidays around the corner. If you're taking other classes, those are probably coming to an end, so final projects. So there's just a lot that gets kind of bundled together here. So we want to take the long view just to see all of the stuff that's coming out in front of us. So just to recap here, it is Wednesday the 16th when I'm recording this. So a couple of our due dates you can see, right? We go right into the first week there in December. So we have a few units left to do in addition to a kind of final culminating project, and that's part of what we'll look at. So we're now moving into the drama section of the course, looking first at Susan Glaspell's play Trifles, a fairly short read. And this one, this play in particular, I mean most plays generally, right, because they're a visual medium in addition to us being able to read it, this asks you to think about sort of how the thing exists visually, not just on paper, but how different productions might use scenery or position people or how people might dress to communicate some of the ideas that are happening in the play. And so again, when a production is staged like that, there's nothing really left to chance. The actors don't just show up wearing whatever they felt like wearing. The lights aren't on the same way all the time necessarily. The stage just doesn't happen to look the way because people put a chair here and a table there. It's all, especially if the production's a good one, it's all really strategic choices about how can we make this look a certain way to communicate themes that are emerging in the play, whether it's the separation of genders or gender sort of power inequality, the different roles, right, that each of the individuals play, how important, quote unquote, they are. Even that sense of sort of desolation or isolation that plays such a significant part in this particular work. So that's what this unit is having us look at. We then turn around and do a little bit of Shakespeare in Unit 11, not reading an entire play, but looking at one that I'm sure that you've heard of, if not studied before, the famous To Be or Not to Be, looking at a bunch of different versions. And you'll notice, and this is why, again, I'm taking that sort of longer view here, there's an assignment here connected with Unit 11, but there's also a note to give you a little heads up about this slightly more involved project coming for Unit 12. So it's early advanced warning, so you can start thinking about this as early as possible. So again, especially as we get to the end, definitely not units or projects that you'll be able to log in the day of and figure it all out and do something really meaningful. So you really do have to be conscious of getting in there and working kind of systematically almost every day a little bit rather than just, a whole bunch all at once. A whole bunch of different to-bes or not to-bes there. Okay, so zooming forward then into that drama project. Here we're asking you to record yourself. Probably video is going to be easiest, even if you're not actually on camera. There could be ways of doing that. But performing, right, the monologue that we just saw a whole bunch of examples of in the previous unit. And now I get that we're not, right, professional actors here, and you probably won't even memorize, right, the whole thing. It's a lot of text to take in. So you need to be sort of creative about, is there a way that you could film something where if you're not on camera or it's not physically you, that you could actually hold the book. But even if you have to hold the book, Hamlet was a university student, so maybe he's holding a book. But regardless, right, you don't just want to read the words on the page. You want to, as best as you can, perform them. Have a little fun with it too. You'll notice from the previous unit that all of those Hamlets were performing more or less the same speech, but because of the way they deliver the lines, because of the, again, the aspects of staging and the camera work, we can get a really different sense of whether Hamlet is just this crazy guy or he's really calculating and is pretending to be crazy, is really like internal, sort of lost in his own thoughts, or is he more aware of what's going on around him? So again, same character, ostensibly, same lines, more or less, but really different senses of who this person is. So that's part of what you get to participate in here, is kind of creating your own Hamlet. You're obviously reading the words, right, as from the page, but you're still performing them. And you want to be creative about how you be able to film that, right? If you need to get a friend, family member, whatever, to actually do the filming of you, if you want to, I don't know, right, get creative. But again, certainly not something that you're going to log in the day it's due and probably be able to do something that's really meaningful or you can be proud of. You could probably get it done, but, right, your grade will reflect that, I think. Just barely sort of doing the minimum. So again, this would have been, right, the text you see in Unit 11, but also, right, that you're working on systematically throughout Unit 12. And then you're just posting the link in here if you've embedded or uploaded your video to YouTube or audio to SoundCloud. Lots of different ways to do it. Or you can even just be in touch with me, email me a file. Sometimes they get pretty big, so we have to be careful with that. And then I can post it for you. But again, not something that can happen at the last minute on the due date. So you just want to be conscious of those due dates and, you know, working regularly in our course, not sort of waiting till the last minute. Okay, which takes us to our final project. Final project is assigned in Unit 13, is actually due in Unit 14, just off my screen at the bottom here. So the final project, so we're trying to wrap up or kind of take a really comprehensive view of the various things that we've done throughout the course, the various pieces of literature, all the genres that we've covered. So our 8 weeks goes by pretty quickly, but we do actually cover a lot of material. So now is our chance to sort of reflect on that. So what you'll be able to do here in Unit 13, there's a couple of readings to do, but they're largely about art generally. So it's a nice way to think kind of broadly again about what we've been studying, not just poetry, but across the board. And then there's a bunch of options that you can work on for your final project. And they're all, most of them anyway, meant to be pretty creative. So not just the write a final essay type of thing, but a little more creative. But again, something that needs to have your investment of time, not just you log in at the last minute, you throw something together and you hope that it kind of does what it's supposed to do. So opportunity to get a little bit creative. I'm not going to go through all of them since they do have a pretty elaborate explanation here, right? But again, just reminding you to get in here early, even if you want to start thinking about these now as we're doing the smaller sort of unit-to-unit work. So we begin the final project in 13, and then you'll see that there's a place to submit it in 14. Again, just off my screen here. Okay, so in addition to the final project, which you're submitting here at the start of Unit 14, it's in discussion board format. So hopefully you can, depending on what option you pick, you might be giving us a link or a picture or audio video. It all sort of depends on the option. We have the usual reply, so hopefully you can have the chance to see what a bunch of other people have done, especially because there's lots of options and they're pretty creative, so it's sort of fun to see what other people have done. So we need to wrap up that final project here in Unit 14, ideally right at the start. And then there's a final reflection, more of that traditional, what did I learn in this course? Set up sort of like an essay, right? Question what you learned in the class, 3 key ideas. Try not to just make it like facts, like so-and-so was born or whatever author wrote a certain work. Talk maybe about some ideas or even connections between ideas or works, I should say, that you hadn't thought of before. Maybe even some stuff emerges in the drama unit about how important that visual aspect or the performance aspect of drama is, even if we sometimes spend a lot of time, especially in a course like this, focused just on the text, right, as it exists in the book, but clearly that's not really how they were meant to be experienced by an audience. Some options here that you can do, again, just to sort of like, you know, invite different approaches, but basically you're creating an essay in so many words. So you might actually write an essay, simple enough. You might prefer to do like a Google slide or type of thing. You could create a website if that's something that you're kind of into or have done before. Infographic, same idea. We could have an appointment where we just meet virtually or face-to-face, have a kind of, you could call it an oral exam, I guess, if you want, but it's not really that formal. We'll just sort of talk through about, like, what are the things that you learned in the class, and you'll tell me, and I think it would be a, hopefully maybe less stressful or a little more engaging than just writing it on a piece of paper. Or you can take the essay idea and record yourself doing a video, just talking to your webcam. Like I say here, you'd probably want to make some basic outline and notes for yourself so you're not just rambling like I am a little bit. But you certainly don't have to write a whole essay and then just read it into the camera. So don't think that you're doubling up on the work necessarily. So again, I'm pointing to this here so that your mind is aware of it, right? You're aware of it. You're maybe starting to think about it, but you're really conscious that especially as we get towards the end, the projects get a little more involved, a little more creative. They'll definitely need, I wouldn't say more of your time, but a judicious use of your time. So again, not getting in at the last minute and trying to just fumble it together and posting at 11:59 or right before the due date, basically. So it's good to take that longer view of where we're headed as we do get closer to the end of our course, but also, like I said, into Thanksgiving. Then you're looking at the holidays and try to plan family stuff and travel and, that whole ball of wax. Not to mention work that you're probably beginning to do, final project work for other classes as well. So again, does it take more of your time? I don't think so, but you do have to be careful about how you're using your time. So as always, if you have questions or concerns, be in touch with me, and I'll certainly check in with everybody in a few days.